Go get my notes up. I'm so happy to have back here in our studio Pastor Bryan Tolentino. Welcome back.
I'm also happy to be back here.
Well, I know I've been following you on Facebook, and I've been seeing that through your work, you've been around the world a couple times, Pastor.
Literally around the world.
Correct. Could you share with us some of the things that you've been up to in regarding to our Adventist heritage?
Well, one of the most exciting is that Adventist heritage talk about history.
Yeah.
And history is not something about just books reading it. You have to go to those places. Now, last time before Mountain View, I went, across the Philippines and also Indonesia just to go to these, historical places. And last year we were in Battle Creek towards New York. This was like 13 days, Adventist Heritage Tour. And just like a few days ago, we just came back I came from Melbourne, and then we went to Sydney, Coranbong. This is a wonderful experience. There are things that I didn't know about Ellen White that otherwise I could not have known if I did not go there. Like, there was a funny story. This is really a funny story. Confession that no one would know. I was so excited to go to one of the places where Ellen White lived for like 1 year.
Okay.
This is in Norfolk. She called it Norfolk Villa in Granville in Sydney.
Okay.
So we're so excited. I located the place. We did like our assignment, how to locate this place, even to the point that I used one of our elders to locate in the real estate. Where is this, picture of this house? So we located. And when we went there, like 47 of us there, one bus, we went there. And I was so excited. We took a picture of this place. And when we were on the bus, we realized that the house was adjacent to the house we were taking pictures.
You were so excited.
Because it's so the same, but except for some features of the color.
Yeah.
And in Australia, you cannot change the color or anything if it's a historic place. I don't know, but it was a tale of two houses.
I think I've had a similar experience as well, Pastor. Because I think it's funny, because a couple years ago I was tasked with Adventist Missions to do a historical walk through New York of the Adventist work that was done way in the past. This is 1900s, and so the director gives me a photo of where the conference was. I forget the actual name of the but I think it's Greater New York Conference, I think was the actual name, but it might have changed. So he gives me a photo, and I'm walking around this area. I cannot find it, and so I need to relax. Maybe I'm just stressed, and so I go to a bookstore. There's this bookstore there, and I go upstairs, and I'm just sitting there. Just for some reason, I'm sitting there, and I look across, like, from the bookstore. Sad to say, it's now a McDonald's.
Yeah.
But the old buildings beside it matched exactly what was in the photo. And I go,
so you were there.
I was there where the conference used to be. And it was just interesting to me because the other building stayed the same, except the conference office that we used to have, which is now a McDonald's. But knowing that that's where our church started. On the East Coast, it was very... it adds flavor to my belief. It adds flavor to my faith, because it's not just black and white photos. It's actual locations. I see the square block. I see the street where people walk. And this poses a question to me. What do you think gives us that reasoning that we should find time, if it's financially possible, that we get to visit these sites, whether it's Adventist heritage or even where Christ walked or where Paul walked? What can you share with us, some type of significance of?
Or maybe let me add a question: is it a waste of time going to these places?
There you go. Yes.
Is it a waste of money?
There you go.
Going to these places.
Yes. That's a better way of putting it.
Ellen White went to Switzerland, and not only went to Switzerland, she literally went to the Waldensian village and all of this. Why did she go there? And how did it add flavor to her writing, especially the Great Controversy? It was wonderful. Had she not experienced, she even wrote detailed of everything she experienced there. Not only that, she even confirmed these places, this is what I saw and all of this. So for me, going towards, let me see, one of Ellen White's houses, where she wrote the Desire of Ages. Just to give an idea, we often think about, last time I talked to you about the great controversy. Yeah. She was so sick, like 3 times she almost died. But when she was writing Desire of Ages, December 8th, she arrived in Sydney. She left like November 12 from San Francisco, and then Honolulu, and then Samoa, and then New Zealand, and at December 8th she arrived there. In December 21, she attended the most powerful meeting, because this is the organization of the Australasian Union. The day after, she contracted malaria, and then she had like pain. The whole body was in pain. The only thing that have pain is her wrist to her finger.
Really?
For 11 months, she was writing Desire of Ages. 11 months.
So that's the history of how she began to write it.
Yes. She couldn't even move. The moment she moved, there was pain. If you read it, just Google it, Ellen White, Experiences in Australia. The chapter was discussed by Mom Angie there. I gave it to her. On the bus, we were moving on the bus. The title is Ministry in Great Pain and Suffering. And for 11 months, she was writing this. She was not yet finished with it, but she began with this. And seeing the house of Ellen White in the sunny side in Coranbong, and she could not use her saloon. They call it saloon, like the sala. She would often write outside of her house in the garden during this time, because she sacrificed, her comfort, because the saloon became Mac and Turfer's like clinic. That was the predecessor of the sanitarium, or the Sydney sanitarium. Wow. There was no hospital anywhere but her house. And there was no doctor but Sarah McIntyre, her literary assistant, at the same time nurse. Going to these places, goosebump anywhere.
Yeah, especially knowing the context that's behind it. Yes, you can read it in a book, but seeing probably the garden that you were referring to and the house, it adds that context that's, for me, I'm calling it flavor, but it's like color.
Yeah, to the Desire of Ages.
Yes, yeah.
And another thing I want to share to you, she was not only writing Desire of Ages, Christ Object Lesson, Ministry of Healing. Steps of Christ was done in 1891 before she went there.
Okay.
Now, she was looking at Sarah McIntyre, and the people was like, why are you here? Let me give you why her house is so far from Avondale. It's near but far. She bought like 60 hectares property from Avondale just for them to have the money to start the school. Why she built it there, so outskirt. We even walked there like 2 kilometers. So outskirt. It's not the main road, because when she was in Granville in Sydney, her house became a free hotel for Adventists. And she said, if this keeps coming, I cannot write. I just keep on, and even their bed are given to the visitors. There were about 12 of them to 15. And I see the context of all of this when you go there. Sometimes when you just read Ellen White was, prolific writer, that's good. But the struggles that came through it, just to write all of this, there were a lot of stories. Before I end with this, people would say, why are you here? When they were setting up the house, 80% of the people were, Sydney, these places are from the Great Britain. They would what? They would bring all the convicts there so that they would live there.
Yeah.
So, like 60 to 80% of the people there are thieves. And the clotheslines and all of this, they're gone. And people say, why are you here? People here are not worth, saving. And then, why don't you sue them? Because all your things are gone. She said, why will I sue people that I'm reaching? This is Ellen White.
I mean, you just opened up a new perspective to me. You're right, because Australia was a colony way back then of England, and that's where they kind of, what do you call it? Abolish. Exile. Yeah, they exiled people. So now it makes context to me, when people...
At first, the Great Britain would exile people to Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
But when the U.S. became, a little bit popular, they exiled them even
Further. All the way down to Australia. And to think, wow. Because, of course, I know some of the history of how Ellen White was kind of pushed down there.
Yeah.
But it is, by hearing that, it's more of God's guidance rather than, issues that were happening elsewhere.
There was some percentage that she was pushed there. But Haskell, in the mission board of the Joint Conference, asked Ellen White to visit there as long as God would provide her guidance to go there. And there was no guidance. There was no vision. There was no dream. It's up to Ellen White whether she would go there or not.
Mm-hmm.
But being submissive to the Joint Conference. Although during that time she was saying that the Joint Conference is no longer the voice of God.
Yeah.
And yet she'd still trust that God is still in control.
Yeah.
Until when she came in 1901, when things already changed, she said to her son, no, the Joint Conference is now the voice of God because it has become the representative body of the church.
Yeah.
Not only 3 people, doing all the
decision making.
The decision making.
Yeah.
These are all things that could be clear if you were there, actual in the place.
Yeah. See, having that context really allows us to see the bigger picture that is at play. And just for me right now, I mean, I'm just trying to internalize that she was there in Australia.
So I was literally blown away when I went there.
That gives me a whole different context. Like I was saying, that those people there, she went there for mission, really.
Yes.
Because she wanted to reach those people who were the outcasts, the people who were exiled, as you were saying earlier. Pastor, I see there's a lot of these stories that you have in your heart and in your mind that you've internalized. Is there a certain story that's your source of inspiration that has been, I wouldn't say it's been guiding you all along, but has been inspiring to continue this work of not because you're visiting these places, but because you're looking at this historical relevance and culture and context that's applicable to us today?
Well, when we talk about mission, it's not just past tense, it's present tense and future tense. When I went there, I think I'm not only going there, I am bringing people there, literally like an investment. There's nothing more powerful than experiencing history right before your eyes and stepping on the very place where history began. When we talk about history, when in the US, there are a lot of people involved in history. But when you go to Australia, there's just one person overarching almost everything that happens there. And that's Ellen White. Just to give you an idea. There were only 300 members when Ellen White went there. So you can just imagine. And with 300 members, she wants to begin hospital, publishing house, college, and food factory. Food factory was the very first that came. And now it's the main source of finances for the division. And the publishing house also was organized during that time. A little story before the publishing house began. After Haskell, a missionary was sent there, and he was giving tracts. And no one would accept it. And he was so discouraged that he just dumped the tract on the table and left. And he said, I am bound to go home to the US. And one particular person just picked the tract, read it. It's all about the Sabbath. And tracked him and then invited him to go to the debate. And it was published across the newspapers in Sydney and in Melbourne. The debate was about what is the Sabbath? Is it Sunday or Saturday? And then he was in the debate and everyone was listening to it. And that was the foundation why the North Fitzroy Church was founded. That was before Ellen White came there. And so this person, this missionary was the one who founded, but that the same missionary was rebuked by Ellen White because of his spirit, why the church do not grow. And he accepted the rebuke when Ellen White came. And then began all of this. Like the food factory now. They are serving like billions and billions.
The whole world. I mean, their product goes around the world, the sanitarium.
But when you go to the sanitarium, you see the first picture there is Ellen White. Mm-hmm. When you go to the publishing house, the first picture is Ellen White. You do not see, Andrews or Haskell or any other pioneer. It was single-handedly Ellen White in Australia. Haskell said, go to Australia and put character to our work there. And that same word has been fulfilled. And when she was regretting, why did I go here? How would I? And then the funds are gone and all of. And had it not for Ellen White, Avondale and all other institutions would not be established, because it is only her that has the influence to gather funds from the U.S. so that it would be founded. Had it not for her influence, it would not have been really realized. Now, the strongest, the average now, the ratio, SPD ratio is like 1:50. Of course, not in Australia.
Yeah, it's
but
bigger.
There are countries that are like 90% Adventist, and some presidents, prime ministers are Adventist.
Yes. Wow. That's because of her.
Had it not for Australia, Philippines, and the rest of the Southern Asia Pacific division is not there.
Yeah. Speaking of that, Pastor, I think you posted a photo or like a tombstone that you...
Caldwell.
Yes, there you go. Yeah, could you share on that? And then and it's linked to us being, for SSD or for our territory.
Most of our canvassers would go to Hong Kong for Abraham LaRue. But Abraham LaRue never stepped in the soil of the Philippines. But Caldwell, very humble. No one has ever visited Caldwell's tomb. Graveyard. No one. And yet, he canvassed in 11 major provinces in the Philippines. He was the first missionary to ever step in the Philippines. And he was the one who recommended that there would be 8 to 12 major languages that should be reached, so that all missionaries were sent there. Now it became the major conferences now. When we visited that, it was like, colporteurs has talked about him for decades. They know him very much, even you, even us. I went to find that grave.
Yeah.
Find grave. And then I was able to locate. Not only that, if you go there and go to Robert Archibald Caldwell, I put some contributions there, pictures and stories.
You're talking about
in the website.
On the website, okay.
On the website, you can actually, it's like a Wikipedia that you can change. And it's there, and I found the exact location. LC30 something. And when we were there, I was like, it was something. Pastor, the treasurer, Pastor Adap, asked me the question when we were inaugurating the Adventist heritage. So what is the delineation between heritage and idolatry?
Okay. Yeah, because we're putting their objects there or images of them. Yeah, I get it. Okay.
No. Heritage, idolatry is, putting in place of God. But heritage is recognizing, just like Revelation chapter 14, verse 13, their works follow them. Yeah, their works follow them. Blessed are they that rest upon the Lord. But their works follow them. We follow them because they are missionaries. And they emulate to us the perfect example of sacrifice. And they sacrifice so much. And when we were there, say, this is the man. I told them the story about Caldwell and how he was so much sacrificing just to come here during the time when the Spanish fever,
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and malaria and tuberculosis was so strong here, especially in the Philippines. And in Australia, the Spanish fever, what is that? We call it now
It's something else.
yeah.
But yeah.
But that was the time.
Really?
And the death rate, remember, 19 something. But he was here to canvas. And he was sacrificing just to begin the work. And he even, and let me quote Caldwell when he said, every breath we take, there are 5 Filipinos dying every day. Every breath, there are 5 Filipinos dying without knowing Jesus. And then he said, every word in the Bible, every letter in the Bible, times 2, Filipinos are dying every second.
So he was really dedicated. I know Caldwell, but like the books, I have not yet been able to read. So his life, majority of his life was being
Not really. He stayed there like 5 years.
Oh, 5 years.
And another 3 years. But that was the foundational year.
From that, others joined in.
He paved the way.
And so him being here, we did not yet start any conference yet during that time.
There was no
there was nothing
Seventh-day
yet.
Adventist. Not even one Seventh-day Adventist when he came here. Not a single Adventist was here. Just like Abraham Laru, not a single Adventist in the whole of Asia.
Yeah.
But not a single Adventist when Caldwell here.
Yeah, can you imagine? This is what, Pastor, less than 100 years ago?
This is in 1905.
05. So just over 100 years ago,
Yes.
in that span of time,
We became like 1.3 million.
Yes, correct. And just seeing how our church now is evolving in a sense where we're having more union.
I remember the call of Erwin, because he visited here for 8 days. And then when he went to Australia, he said, we are sending meat and butter to the Philippines and milk. Why can't we send spiritual meat from Australia? And then Caldwell said, 26 years old. He was born 1880. He said, I will go. And he went. He is a bachelor. He is a single person. Not yet married. He came here.
Interesting. It's interesting for me to see that transition over time. I'm saying how quickly that happened, and in that span of time, was able to introduce the mission work here, the literature, and start. I don't know how many years later, because AUP. Not AUP.
PUC.
PUC was
15.
1915. Okay, there you go. So that's like that span of time is very short compared to what we've been doing late. I'm just saying in contrast to our existence here.
Because from 1905 to 1916, in 1916, A.G. Daniels came to the Philippines to establish the biggest conference in the world, that's Central Luzon Conference.
Yes.
And after Caldwell and Adams and Ashbo, I don't know if you heard about Ashbo, but he was a colporteur. He has not finished yet his school, but he went to the Philippines to be a colporteur. He was a convert of, have you heard about Luther Warren and Harry Fenner, the founder of the Adventist Youth?
Oh, yes, okay.
Remember?
Yeah, Pathfinders, yes.
They were converts of them.
Really?
He is a youth leader. He is the first Adventist volunteer.
Yeah.
Adventist missionary volunteer.
Yeah.
He is
MV.
the first missionary volunteer, and he was sent to the Philippines. We owe it to the Adventist youth.
Seeing that.
We owe
hearing
it to
that.
Luther Warren and Harry Fenner.
Yeah. Wow.
Goosebump.
Yes.
Goosebump.
Because those are the stories that you grow, when you go to Pathfinders, you hear those stories, but knowing that I'm in that territory, being part of that organization, goosebumps.
We thought it's not connected. It's all connected.
Yeah.
When you are in the Adventist heritage, there's a dot that you just put a line on it, and you will see everything. Had it not for these little efforts we think.
See, these are the things, Pastor. I know and believe that if our church was able to see those dots, they would also understand their purpose right now. Well, Pastor, I believe in the work that you're doing. I believe that God has been leading you down these paths. So thank you so much for being with us today. We're going to have more conversations in the future. Dig a little bit deeper into some of these historical points, but also looking forward towards the future and the participation that we have as members of the church is not just being in the pews and giving when it's time to give, but also sacrificing our lives for the mission of
No, I want to promote something.
Go ahead.
So what does it mean? What does it mean for us today? Today in October 19, this October 19, we will be again re-emphasizing spirit of prophecy and heritage.
Mm-hmm.
And the materials already will be published, will be shared to you. But this time, we will be emphasizing on the power of the spirit of prophecy to lead us to Jesus, to the Bible, and to do missions.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that this will be reignited,
Mm-hmm.
that we will be on fire, that we can participate not only in hearing what happened before, but in telling God, Lord, here am I, send me, so that my name, not only my name, my contributions will inspire those that would come behind me.
Mm-hmm. Pastor, where can we find these resources for this upcoming event?
It is in the, if you type Spirit of Prophecy and Heritage Sabbath,
Mm-hmm.
it's in the White Estate.
Okay, so
But we have coordinated with we will be coordinating with the division so that the same materials will be published also, and the link will be published also here in our website. And we will be putting up some QR codes on the posters so that they can just easily look at it. The sermon is already there. The sermon script is there, but Dr. Merlin Bird is literally speaking on video so that they can also hear it if they want to hear.
So they just have to download it and play it on that Sabbath.
Yes.
And they can, at least as a congregation, learn together and be inspired for the mission that's had. So, Pastor Bryan, thank you so much for your time, for being with us. So for those who just experienced a time that we've just had with Pastor Bryan and would like to learn more, go and follow our social media pages on Facebook and on Instagram. If you enjoyed this podcast, give us a like. And if you want to watch previous episodes, head over to our YouTube channel, Adventist Asia, and also our podcast on Spotify. Until next time, God bless you.